Welcome everyone to a unique video that we're sending out to you today. Last week, we had a luncheon here in Edmonton where we had Kim Krushell, former City Councillor of Edmonton, speaking about, of all things, digital risk. So we might think, why would we have a former councillor talk about digital risk? But now that I've had a week to reflect on Kim's talk, I wanted to do a special introduction before we send this out. Kim was the perfect speaker for us during Cybersecurity Month, which is October in Canada. She, since leaving City Council, has co-founded a company called Treefort Technologies, which is the fastest growing ID verification company in Canada. In addition, she's seen things evolve in social media and how we use technology through her time at the city and now into her new career. But most importantly, for us, Kim is one of those people that gets very excited when she hears a great idea. So about 3 months ago in July, I reached out to Kim after running into her for the first time in a long time and asked her about Treefort, how she was doing. She was very excited, of course. And I said, you know, Marshall has an idea I'd love to pick your brain on. And she invited me for lunch and I said, here's what we see. We're really good about talking about risk with our clients, about how we handle investment risk, inflation risk, retirement risks. But the biggest risk that we see in most Canadians' lives, and especially in high net worth lives, that isn't being addressed well is digital risk. Fraud, hacking, phishing emails, online risks that come from just having lives that exist online. And Kim got really excited. She said, Carrie, you're absolutely right. I can introduce you to this person and that person, and at this company they're doing X, and at this institution and university they're doing Y, and what about this and what about that? And about an hour and a half later, I said, okay, Kim, what do I do next? And she was kind enough to offer to talk to some of our clients. And so the presentation you're about to see is Kim's talk about how to protect ourselves online. And Kim does a great job. She goes step by step as to what we need to do in order to make sure that we're not the low-hanging fruit when bad actors online are trying to scam us. That, she says, is probably enough to keep ourselves safe. Scammers, of course, are big business in the crime world, and they want to make money as easily and quickly as possible. So take a look through Kim's video, watch, and start to implement these steps into your own lives and into your own digital lives. It will make a tremendous difference for you. Most importantly, from the perspective of North Road, you're going to hear a lot from us about preventing risks online and in the real world. So Kim's video is a launch of a new program that we're going to start rolling out over the next weeks and months. Stay tuned to the end of her video to meet Misha, one of our newest colleagues. You're going to see lots and hear lots from him over the next few months. In addition, you're going to hear lots from us around this big focus for us for the end of 2024 and throughout 2025 and beyond as we start to talk about how to keep ourselves safe online. Without further ado then, I'll pass it over to Kim Krushell's presentation.
I have to admit, if you told me that I would be standing in front of a group of ladies today to talk about cybersecurity, let's say 20 years ago, I would think you were crazy. But this is my new passion, and I'm going to show you why. So some of what I'm going to show you, I'll be real, it's scary. But I also want you to learn that you can empower yourself when it comes to cybersecurity. So there is going to be a lot that you're going to see today in these slides. And what I want you to keep in mind is that I've talked to Carrie. We're going to he's going to send the slide deck to you. You can go through it. You can do your own research. And I also offered to Carrie that if people did have questions, they can, today I'll try to answer any that you have, but also going forward, I'm happy to talk to any of you. So I'm going to just sign back in because, of course, how it works with technology is when you're not using it, it requires you to sign back in. And you'll notice that I am punching in a very long password. There's a reason for that. Okay. So today what I'm going to cover is giving you at least an idea of cybersecurity. So I'm going to talk about how bad is cybercrime really? I'm going to talk about the top threats that are targeting you as individuals. I am going to talk about what you can do to be less of a target. And I'm going to talk about what to do if you are successfully hacked, and then what is next. So what are we up against? Ladies, this is a pretty scary statistic. If you take all of the cybercrime global damages, this is global, and you actually line it up in terms of where cybercrime sits as a country, technically cybercrime right now is the third world's largest economy. And the disturbing part about that number of 9.5 trillion is that it's actually an underreported number. We believe it's about between 3 to 5 trillion higher than that, because this study that came up with these numbers is actually outdated. So what we are up against in Canada, well, these are the fraud reports. So this is up from the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre, which is a great resource to pay attention to. They will put, for example, the latest scams and other information. But in Canada, loss to fraud in 2023 was a total of 569 million. That's money of our money. As of June 30th, they haven't updated it yet, we're looking at 284 million and counting in terms of losses for Canadians. Now, the disturbing part about these numbers is that this is also underreported. Only around 10% of people actually report fraud that has occurred when it comes to cybercrime. They're either embarrassed, or it's a business that doesn't want to disclose. There's a bunch of different reasons for why. But this is the reality we're up against. So this number is very, very low compared to what we believe it actually is. So who commits cybercrime? Lots of us, think it's some mysterious hacker. The reality is that there's a whole bunch of different people committing cybercrime for different reasons. So you've probably heard lots in the news about the nation states. The ones that we're concerned about are Russia, Iran, North Korea in particular, because North Korea, that's how they actually help boost their economy, is through hacking. So we're concerned about the nation states. China would be another big one. So nation states are one thing. Nation states aren't really targeting you in this room. They're targeting large institutions. Unfortunately, they're targeting hospitals, and they're targeting neonatal units. So this is a big problem. This is what's been happening in the US. We have hacktivists who are usually for ideological reasons trying to hack you. There are terrorist groups, thrill seekers, insider threats, and then there's cyber criminals. And most of the cyber criminals, we're talking organized crime. And in fact, cybercrime is more profitable than all of the illicit drug trade combined. So cybercrime is big business and employs actually tens of thousands of individuals. So people are actually employed like a business. So you will have a hacker that has been assigned to hack this particular institution, and they're paid to do that. You can think of the dark web as, think Shopify, and the fact that you can go on Shopify and you can purchase different things. The dark web is now basically a big market for tools that hackers can purchase to get more effective at hacking all of us in this room. The other thing to keep in mind is that these individuals will target anyone. They don't care who you are. In fact, they're not even really paying attention to who you are, except for to get your information and to try to steal from you. So what we are in our company, we're in the identity verification space. We see this as we're in an arms race. We're the good guys, and then there's a lot of bad guys, and we need a lot more of us. And so we're doing our part. And as part of doing our part, this is why I'm here today. The more that I can tell you what's going on, the more that you can be aware of what you can do to start figuring out how we can all protect each other. So the top threats that are targeting individuals, the biggest one would be pretty obvious: phishing attacks. How many of you in this room have seen phishing attacks? Exactly. The key thing to remember about phishing attacks, though, is they're not just coming through emails. They are also coming in through text messages. They can come through phone calls. They will use social media. So there are lots of different areas where phishing attacks will come through. And what their purpose is, and the reason why they're so prolific, is because the bad guys are now using a generative artificial intelligence. So they can just churn these out. And they can now target you more effectively. We call it spear phishing, where they've got your data and they are targeting you much more effectively than maybe they did when you first saw like the spelling mistakes in those emails. You now really need to pay attention to where the email came from and look at that URL. So that's one thing that I want to highlight. Every email you get, if you get a text message from somebody that you don't know, don't click on it. The other thing is they're also getting better at, they recognize that we're getting smarter, so they might send us an email within the email that will have information. They want you to click on it. I'm going to show some more of that in a second. We've got ransomware, which the key to ransomware is it's always urgent and they want you to pay in cryptocurrency, identity theft, malware, and spyware. And then one that's becoming really alarming for democracies is misinformation, disinformation, malformation, known as MNM. So phishing attacks I just talked about. I think the key thing that I wanted to show here is that one at the far left of my left, your right. That shows you just how sophisticated some of these phishing attacks are now. So these guys know that you might have a benefits plan, and so you just got hired with a new company and they've got that data. They could send you something like that email and you would think, oh, this is from my benefits plan with my new job. And so you click on it. So again, think before you click anything is the key thing. Think before you click. And then look at who it's from. And so these are examples of the different types. So you can always look up in that URL where you're looking at the search engine. You always want to check on that. You can also hover your mouse on, or if you're using your laptop, you can hover on the name and see if they're anybody that you know. So those are key things to do when it comes to phishing attacks. Ransomware attacks, there's tons of different types. The big thing, and this is becoming a much bigger issue for business, but they'll also attack individuals. So I just popped in this slide the latest fraud alert from the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre. This was as of October 2nd, and here they're worried about an extortion scam that is pretty prolific and apparently pretty effective. So the other thing to be aware of that I'll mention briefly are QR codes. How many of you have taken your phone and downloaded a QR code? I thought about actually putting a QR code in the back just to have you all do it and then get it. I just didn't have time today. But again, QR codes are really bad from a cybersecurity perspective. And the reason is because they're an image. So don't scan QR codes unless you're absolutely certain that it's okay to scan this QR code. There are certain circumstances where you would do it. But if you're at a conference and they're like, hey, do this, go and talk to the IT person and sit there with that person at the conference who's putting that QR code out there. Make sure it's legit. Because this is actually not an uncommon thing for cyber criminals to do. So I'm not going to talk lots about that. Here's one I will spend a little bit of time talking about, and that is identity theft. This is the biggest threat that's facing all of you in this room, is identity theft. Unfortunately, a lot of our identity is already out there, and that's what you need to understand. Unfortunately for us, the cyber criminals pretty much have pretty much all of Canadians' social insurance numbers. They have a lot of data on us. And that's because of the amount of data breaches that we've had. So one of the biggest is called MOAB. It's the mother of all breaches. It's what it's called. Some enterprising cyber criminals made it so that they can search it like a database. And so they now can go into the MOAB site and they can search for anybody to target. But they don't even have to do that. They can have bots go and search and just pull data and then send it out, right? So they're not actually targeting you as a person behind it. It's just a bot doing it. So this gives you an idea of the scale. The other that we're concerned about is synthetic identity, where they create pieces of information. So this is one of the bad guys that our system caught. This guy I'm not showing the second set of ID, but this guy went to Chicago Title out of Toronto first for title insurance. He on the ID that you see there, he put his face, but the identity is blurred out because it's legitimately somebody else's identity. So he stole their identity from a data breach. He used it to create these IDs, and then he used the IDs to try to commit mortgage fraud. So this is what he was interested in doing. This gentleman did 4 attempts. He did 3 with Chicago Title, and then we didn't hear from him. And then a few months later, he went to Stewart Title Insurance, and we caught him again. So these are his faces and what he tried to do to try to spoof our identity verification system, but we caught him. So this gives you an idea of, what the bad guys are capable of. In this case, it turned out that of those 33 homes that were sold out from legitimate homeowners in Toronto, 70% of those were bad guys putting their own face on the fake ID that they used to perpetuate that mortgage fraud. So it wasn't, they're not afraid to be in person with a mortgage broker and a lawyer. And so this has been a big wake-up call for our clients, which tend to be lawyers, mortgage brokers, all in the real estate space, because they're realizing now that it's really easy to fake ID. So what can you do when it comes to identity theft? First of all, be aware that your identity probably is already stolen. So be on the guard. That would be what I would say. And make sure that you are, that you're dealing with Equifax and TransUnion and understanding what your credit file is. Check your bank accounts regularly. All of those kinds of things are things you need to do to pay attention to whether you potentially are, unfortunately, your data is being used and your identity is being used. Malware and spyware attacks. So there's lots of them, and that's why, again, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but just to tell you that there are lots of ways that they can either steal your information or spy on you. For women in particular, the spying technology really concerns me. But you need to be aware of it. I mean, there are now mobile spyware that's designed for smartphones to track your calls, messages, locations, and app data. And all you have to do is click on some bad email and you can get it into your system very easily. So there are things to look for though. If your cell phone is heating up all the time and it's warm all the time, that's a sign that your device is probably being used. And they'll use your device not just to track you, they might use your device, especially laptops or desktops, to help them create servers using multiple of our computers that they can power then their efforts for other cybercrime they're doing. So they actually can turn your computer into a server for them. So this is the other thing to pay attention to. I see a lot of shaking heads. We're going to get to some good stuff soon. Misinformation and disinformation. This is probably the one that really concerns me personally, having been a city councillor. The amount of fake news out there is truly disturbing. And I think many in this room, I'm talking to people who already probably have the skills to determine what's real and what isn't, but this is becoming a much bigger issue. And now they're using disinformation and misinformation, M&M is what we call it, to commit cyber crime, to commit fraud. So they'll send you something that you think is real and they'll get you to click on something. And so then you go down a rabbit hole and the next thing you know, you've got malware on your system, or they're doing something else with your data and your information. So these are out there. What I thought this was interesting, I put this in this slide. Cyber criminals are increasingly helping Russia, China target US and allies, and this is true. Canada has increased in terms of being one of the countries that is being targeted by nation states. So it's a reality for us. So here's some good news. What are the 5 ways that we can reduce our cyber risk? So securing your networks, updating our software, I'm going to talk about secure your devices, secure your internet access points, and back up your data. If you do these things, you will reduce yourself as being a target significantly. And that's really what I'm excited to share with you today. You are not totally powerless. The power is with you. And if you do these things and you work, example, as Carrie said, Misha's putting together a system that will help you, you will not be the target that the cyber criminal is interested in. Because I'll tell you, they don't like to go after people that it's hard to go after when they've got so many to go after. So this is how you can protect yourself. So here's my first tip. Create an inventory of all of your online accounts. And that includes what browser are you using, because you need to think about your browser. You need to think about your email system. So if you're using Google, what are you using? So you need to list them all out. For social media, what social media apps do you have? List out your online banking, every app that you use, and any other account that you have online. Like it could be your Epcor account, whatever it is that you have, list them all out. And you can do that with paper, you don't have to do it online for anybody. Just list them all out. And the reason is because it gives you an understanding of what you need to protect. So this tells you everything that you've got. You need to do that kind of homework. The next thing you need to do is you need to create an inventory of all of your devices. So we all have, I thought it was interesting, on average, US households own 21 connected devices. So when we're thinking devices, that's why I put one of the ones that nobody thinks about, that I'm passionate about, is your router. Your router is what that cable person shows up, TELUS, whoever, and installs, and they've got a default password they put on it. It's unique, but it's still their default password. And that router is your gateway to the internet, which is what you're using to, search whatever you want to search with all of your devices. If you don't protect that, it's really easy for the bad guys to get into your system. So routers are really important. You need to update the software on a router, and you need to change the password on a router. So those are the two things: change your password and update your software. And if you're with TELUS, they show you how to do it. So you can just go on their website and punch in router, and then it'll show you how you can do that. But that is one of the key things you want to do. But you also want to think about smart thermostats, home security systems. They can be easily hacked. And then you want to think about Google Home and Alexas, because they get a lot of information about you. So again, list out all of your devices. And next, you're going to implement unique passwords for all of your accounts and all of your devices.
I can only remember one.
Now, this is one of the reasons why I'm going to talk about a password manager. How many of you in this room have a password manager?
Is a file folder a password manager?
No. Nope, that is not a password manager. And in fact, one of the things I will tell you, I was at a meeting, it was a business meeting, and somebody asked me, we have our password manager, all of our passwords for our business in a folder behind our firewalls on our systems. Are we safe? And the answer is no. That would be easy, what we call honeypot opportunities for cyber criminals. Hackers love that stuff because then they've got everything. So password managers are something that really do help you, because you really only need to remember one password to rule them all. It's kind of like, I like Lord of the Rings, so it's like the one ring to rule them all. Same idea. You get one password with your password manager system. You need to remember that password. If you lose it, you're in trouble because they don't keep your one password. That's how they get hacked. You're not in trouble. So you use the one password, you need it to be, and I'll show you in a second, and you then put all of the rest of your passwords on there. And so then when you're using it, it just does it automatically. How many of you have iPhones in this room? Okay, that's actually good. Just so you know, iPhones are just more secure. I have discovered that, and I can tell you that with pretty much a surety. They're also more privacy focused than the Androids. The Android's really easy to hack you through your apps. But Apple has just released their new app that's a password manager that's for free. I have not had time to try it yet, but that would be another option for you, so you can do free. 1Password is one that we use for our business. You can use it as an individual. It's Canadian. Dashlane is really popular. It's out of the US, and Bitwarden is really popular. So those are probably the top three. And then the other thing is, how many of you have set up two-factor or multi-factor authentication on all of your accounts? Okay, some. So, I mean, Carrie and I were talking, if you guys all just did your passwords and you did 2FA for everyone, you would be way less of a target. If you can do one thing today, that's the biggie. And if you want to be more savvy in terms of managing your passwords, get a password manager. If you don't, then, well, you're going to have to do this. So this is, right now, the minimum password that you can do is what they say 12, and I would say it's actually outdated already. But as you notice, I came up with some examples. So minimum of 12 with a mix of upper and lower case letters, numbers, and symbols. So I did working out 99, because you can kind of remember that. The other better approach would be to make it really long, and you can do a mix. What is the best password policy is what I did there. And then NIST, which is one of the cybersecurity frameworks that we all pay attention to, that's basically the US government's advice, is that for memorization, it's hard for people to remember that stronger password that I have up there. It's pretty tough. But a phrase password is much easier. And so NIST has recently just come out with new, in fact, it was just in a couple of weeks, that you could do a phrase. So I put down, it does not do well to dwell on dreams and forget to live, Harry Potter. You do that, there's no way these guys are getting you, because it'll take them until we have quantum computing to actually be able to break any of that. So this is another way that might make it easier for people, is to pick your favorite author, favorite line in one of the stories, pick a favorite song, and just a few of the lyrics, something that you can remember. If you're gonna do it old school and you wanna write it all down, it's not the best practice, but I get people are gonna do that. Take an address book, put all of your passwords associated with all of your accounts, and then lock that thing in some spot. But if you're not doing that, hide it effectively.
So red folder is not effective?
No, because again, if they get all your passwords, they get you. Like, it's that simple. So you need to hide it then, if that's what you're going to do. And I know people that do this. So I'm not saying it's bad. It's not the best practice, but if that's what you need to do it that way then. Because the chances of you getting broken into are higher that they're going to find your password book. Whereas if you're keeping them on a folder online, your chances are really high.
Right, yeah.
So,
excuse me, what about a memory stick?
Memory sticks, the only challenge there is that you can do that. I'm not saying that's not a bad suggestion, is keeping a memory stick, but then hide it somewhere. So you could do it that way. Okay. The only thing with memory stick is, as technology changes, you're going to have to remember that. That's the only downside to that.
That's true.
So, but it's a good question. Whoops. The next thing is update all software. And that means software on every one of those accounts and every device that you've listed out. So remember, you've created all your accounts. You've created a list of all of your devices. Now you need to execute on updating software on every one of them, and which most of them you can just set up for automatic updates. There are some, however, and there are sometimes, like, you have to pay attention. Apple did a big update and it didn't automatically push. You had to actually go and manually push it. So you do need to pay attention to that. Really focus on updating the software for key accounts, like your cell phone, for those that are devices. That's what you really want to focus in on, and your routers. The other thing that people overlook are browsers. So Chrome, it turns out, knows a lot more about you than we may all appreciate. Whatever browser you're using, make sure that you put automatic software updates on it and check it. Because things can change, you may have to go in and rejig it and make sure that they're updating. Because again, that's another opportunity for criminals. The next is secure your connections, which I kind of already talked about, which is your routers, your Bluetooth, like when you're going and you're doing things, turn your Bluetooth off. You don't need it on all the time. VPNs, these are basically, think of networks that protect your information on the internet. They encrypt and they make it so that they can't see when you're searching on your browser. So VPNs are good to have. Norton Antivirus has it. A lot of the companies I mentioned, like Dashlane and Bitwarden, they'll have like an all-in-one. So you can look at those that will have VPNs. Those can help protect you when you're searching. And so they're very good, especially on your cell phone. Will they protect you entirely? No, the jury's out on that. Some of the attacks we're seeing are coming through those systems. Yeah?
The new iPhones You cannot have an external VPN. They have a VPN in them.
Because that's because the brand new iPhone, which I do not have yet, I am getting coming right around the corner, but good on you, you are correct. And in fact, that's because there's a debate on whether VPNs are really, we look at them in our space as they kind of help out criminals, because we see VPNs and we can't sift through, are you a criminal or are you not? So it's really frustrating in some ways for our space, but they do help protect you from just average internet traffic.
But if you don't know that and you have a VPN on your phone, doesn't work.
And if you don't understand how to use a VPN, you're right. And that's why I think Apple's really smart on how they're doing and rolling out their new security. It's basic stuff. It's really good. Firewalls, again, you know, a lot of systems already have firewalls built in, but for some, you can get your own firewalls and you can install them. And it's good for depending on what you're doing. From a business, we would definitely be saying that. For individuals, it's up to you. But they do help you from attacks. And you can purchase different software that will be firewalls that you can layer. So Microsoft, for example, already has all of that as one. For our business, we don't use Microsoft Defender. We're using CrowdStrike. Public Wi-Fi. How many of you love using public Wi-Fi? Okay, good. This crowd is educated. That is a good thing. Always, in my opinion, use your cell phone hotspot. Most of you should have cell phone plans that allow you to do that. Use that. We use it when we're in Europe. We use it when we're in the US. We never do public Wi-Fi unless we know it's like at my mom's condo in Palm Desert. I control that router, so I'll use her Wi-Fi. But otherwise, airports are terrible, all of that information. And the final thing that I really want to get across, and I'm looking at time, is back up your data. You were using a memory, you can do it through a stick, you can get your own, and they're really small, but you can get external hard drives and you can back up your data and then hide those hard drives, like after you've done that. Cloud storage is something where what I would recommend is a hybrid, where you have maybe on your local, we have a hard drive at home, but we also have local cloud storage. So we do both. So it's important to back up your data, because the criminals, if they do get all of your systems, what they do is they shut you out of your own system. So if you have backups, you can just go to that backup and back up your computer, and then you would be okay. You can still operate. With ransomware, the problem is they encrypt and make it so that you can't access any of your backups. So in businesses, we're always trying to make sure we have lots of backups so they can't take us completely out. So that's a key thing to pay attention to. But I'm not going to go into tons of detail on that because I've still got to get through a bunch. So what to do if you're hacked? The key thing is disconnect from the internet immediately. It's the first thing that you're going to do. Unplug it. Because actually it'll stop the hacker from getting all of your data, and lots of people don't realize that, so they sit there. No, unplug it immediately. That's the first step. Second thing is, if you have a password manager, it gives you an advantage. You can change all of your passwords really quickly. That's one of the reasons why we recommend that approach. But change all of your passwords, whether you're doing it through a password manager or manually. Notify your financial institutions. Notify your wealth management folks, because they can help you. Your financial institution will help you. They will work with you. They're very good at it. They do it all the time. Notify them immediately. Report the incident. Too many Canadians aren't reporting. It's a big mistake, because the more that we report, the more that our governments can learn how to protect us, because they're learning about what the frauds are, and then they can alert everybody on what the frauds are. So you report to the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre, and I've got the number there, or to the police. Consider a credit freeze. You can go to Equifax and TransUnion and call them and say you've been hacked. They will then put an alert on it. And in fact, it protects you. We know, because in our product, when somebody has been hacked and they've got that notice, it'll come in as a fraud alert for the lawyer using our technology to see if that person had been hacked. So it can protect you. So those are other things to consider. And these are key and basic. So what can we expect in the future? Well, this is what we're up against right now, which is generative AI, which there are the ones we're concerned about are deep fake synthetic IDs, audio, and video. So you may have heard about a finance worker in Hong Kong basically transferred $25 million, and it turned out to be North Korean hackers that she transferred that money to. She went onto a video meeting. Her CFO was there. Everybody looked like her colleagues, and they talked like her colleagues, and so that's how she got convinced to wire transfer in a series of wire transfers to these coordinates, which turned out to be North Korean hackers. So deep fake in terms of video is going to become a thing. And in fact, we have our next product, which is in beta, we're not launching it at this point because it's ahead of its time, is we've taken our identity verification and bolted it onto a video meeting system so that you have to go through IDV. So in the future, that's what's gonna happen. But right now, isn't there. So I'm gonna show you one really quick kind of thing in terms of face swapping, and then I think we're probably needing to go to questions. So this is what can be done very easily. That's Gen AI, and that is that they can acquire your target, you as a target, from your face from social media, and I'm going to show you how they do it. We just grabbed my LinkedIn, and we pulled the photo, and then we changed it to black and white because it actually was easier for the ID that we selected. Then we just went on the internet and pulled an Alberta driver's license template, which is conveniently located. And then we swapped, as you can see, my photo using a face swapping tool, which there's 110 right now on the regular internet that you and I can use, and we put my face right on that image. And there's no way that a lawyer, anybody, is gonna be able to tell the difference if they're doing it online. Here's an example of what we also did just for fun, is we turned me into sort of a Dutch boy. So this guy's thing, I'm gonna speed this up, and there I am. So that took 28 seconds for us to do. So this changes the identity game. So this is what our technology is combating right now across the country. So just some free resources. Again, Canadian Centre for Cybersecurity, go in there. You'll see how they have the individuals section. It will tell you everything that I've basically told you. It will give you all kinds of information so that you can educate yourself and empower yourself to be cyber safe. The other section is Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre, which I've mentioned. All of the latest scams targeting any individuals is in this website. So it's really good to go, when you're having your morning coffee, see who's been scammed lately. Just go in there, take a look. It will help you be aware and active in terms of being cyber safe. And then Cyber Alberta Initiative has launched. It's only like 2 years old, but the Alberta government recognizes that our cybersecurity is important, so they've launched this. It's a great resource. Again, you can go to their site and get information. And people like me from the industry are members of Cyber Alberta. And you'll see a lot more of us as Cyber Alberta expands, trying to educate people like we are today. And you can get in touch with me if you have questions. And then really my final message to all of you is cybersecurity is up to all of us. We don't have to be victims. We can be way less of a target. And that's it.
All right, let's all catch our breath. Yes. Thank you. Okay, well, people sort of think about their questions. Why don't we step up here? You and I can talk loud.
Totally.
Right? Yeah. Okay, let's do a quick fire. All right?
Okay.
Top 3 risks. Phishing, identity theft, and what do you think?
Well, ransomware, probably.
Okay.
Well, disinformation, actually, I'd switch that. Disinformation, because it's just so prevalent, but it's not as big of a financial risk. So ransomware would be the big financial risk.
Okay, that's just because the election's around the corner in the US, so that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Optimistically, number one thing, if we leave today, we get home, we get in front of our computer to check our email, what should we do instead of checking our email? What's the number one thing we should do?
Inventory all of your accounts and all of your devices is the number one, so that you can then put passwords on all of them and update your software. Those are I can't do one. Those are the 4. If you have to do one, I'd say change your passwords on everything and do what I've instructed in terms of passwords. That is absolutely critical.
Yeah. If you don't have a password manager is a game changer.
Where do you get password manager?
Just online. You literally can go and download. So if you have a phone or if you have a laptop, you can download it online. You can go to Dashlane or 1Password, all of the information I've had here, and they're going to be sending this to all of you, so you can just go look up Dashlane, and then you can download it.
So you recommend those ones?
I recommend those. Those are the biggest, and they're the most known, and they're doing the most. And like we have, for our company, we have access to an international security team because we did a deal with Stuart Title, so these are the ones that they're also looking.
How often are you wanting to change all your passwords?
You know what? The jury is actually out on that. The idea that we have to change our passwords all the time is actually not turning out to make a big difference in terms of cybersecurity. It's the length. So you want to do that phrase password, which I think is easier, quite frankly. For my mom, who is a senior, she's going to turn 80 this year, it's easier for her to remember a phrase. So she does a huge phrase.
But some
don't allow. Then you have to do the upper and lower. You have to do the mix, which is, again, try to make it a phrase, but yeah, you're right.
Bitwarden works really well. Even my husband can use it.
Bitwarden is quite easy. 1Password is a little more, but 1Password is really good for certain things.
Yeah.
Dashlane is really easy.
Okay.
I will say that.
with those password managers, I'm not familiar with it at all. Can you just tell us why that is a good option and why that is a secure option?
Absolutely. So password manager, remember how I talked about Lord of the Rings, 1Password to manage them all? Why they're secure is the fact that they keep all of your passwords basically in a lockbox that you use digitally to sign into your accounts. So you can set up, for example, your 1Password on your phone, on your laptop. So every time you're going in to sign into any account, it's automatically on your system and it signs in for you. So it creates totally unique passwords for every account you're signing into, and it's already confirmed that you are who you are. So you don't have to memorize all these passwords for these accounts, so it does it for you. That's kind of the best way I can describe it. When you're actually uploading it, you'll see what I'm talking about, because it's more of a visual thing to look at. But password managers are the easiest way to protect yourself because it's hard for the criminals to get access to those passwords. And the password manager doesn't keep your password. Like, it'll store all of them, but the big one, the 1Password that rules them all, it doesn't store it.
It's on you.
It's on you.
So how do you know if you were just searching for a password manager? How do you know you don't have somebody that's already collecting your passwords?
Well, that's why you want to go with reputable password managers. And there's some big ones, so you need to do your research. Like Norton Antivirus does a password manager, if I recall. I think it's clunky, but they have one. There's a lot of password managers. I just showed you 3.
Okay.
And I mean, just to be clear, I don't get any money from any of them, in case anyone's wondering. These are just the 3 that we in our field have noticed are really good. Apple, I think, because they built that in, that's something that I want to try out, because I'm getting the new iPhone 16 coming up next week.
What about the passkey thing I'm getting?
So passkeys are still emerging in terms of the technology. The problem with the passkey is it doesn't allow you, like, it works great for one type of account. It doesn't work to pass them through. So there is actually a conference that just happened in San Francisco talking about how passkeys are going to become more a thing, but they're not quite there yet. So it works when you're using it for some things and not others. You can certainly use Google's, but again, then they've got, like, that's where it gets challenging, because some of these tech companies have had what we call zero-day attacks, where their software is getting attacked. It's been in the news, Microsoft. So I tend to like the password manager. That's my own personal preference. I just find it's safer, at least at this point. Yeah.
Name them again, the 3, because I didn't catch it.
So 1Password is just the number 1 and password, and it's Canadian. Dashlane is the other one that I mentioned. Dashlane, Dashlane, and Bitwarden, Bitwarden, all one word. Some of the others, if you're already using like Norton, then use Norton's. If you've already got something, you see if the system that you're already using for security has a password manager in it, because that's easier for you. So Norton would be another one. Bitdefender is another one too. So Bitwarden, Bitdefender, those are kind of the big ones. Okay, yeah, and then I'll go to you.
Okay, so am I doing the wrong thing? When I get one of those phishing messages, like the UPS thing, that's, and I know it, So I click on it and go to the I, and then I go down and block the caller, and then I delete it. Is that bad? Am I, no?
No, that's great practice.
Okay, I can do that.
Yes. You only want a report to Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre if you're successfully hacked.
Yeah, no, but
Because
I'm not vulnerable to being...
No, they're not going to sit there. If you've deleted anything, just like if on your cell phone, just don't ever punch on it. And don't forward any phishing email. Like, don't forward it to somebody to say, hey, is this a phishing email? Don't do that. That happened with one of our team members. She forwarded a phishing email. I mean, it was not a big deal. Our system is pretty much well, I shouldn't say that, but it's good. Our chief cyber guy was like, no. And so we had a whole session on bad practice. Yeah.
I was just wondering about cloud storage. Like, how secure is cloud storage? I've always been out there in cyberspace.
Well, I mean, cloud storage is the best, or it's as safe as anything is going to be. I mean, the reality is, as the hackers get smarter and smarter, it's a challenge for all of us. But you need to store your information somewhere. So if you don't want to be on the internet, that's one thing. But if you're on the internet, you got to store. And so the key to the storing is having backups. And think about what information you're storing. Do you need to store everything? On social media, be really smart about social media. Don't put every grandkid's photo on social media unless you know who is able to look at it, because they can do stuff with those photos. Like, one of the biggest concerns we had was that social insurance numbers have been stolen of kids, and they're using those to take out student loans, and then the kid finds out they have a student loan when they turn 18. This is actually happening right now. This is actually a reality. So to give you an idea of how prevalent that is, my hairdresser's nephew had that happen. Mm-hmm. Like, I've heard those stories quite a bit. Yeah.
So my kids laugh at me because I don't put anything on my phone, like going to Starbucks or...
You mean in terms of directions?
I don't have, no.
No, apps. You're not using any apps.
Or banking information, and they think I'm paranoid.
Well,
like, I've got nothing on my phone other than a phone.
I could just see, I mean, Victoria knows quite a bit. Your daughter knows quite a bit about cybersecurity.
She does this with her watch or something, with coffee, and I'm like, oh my God.
So, I will say, from a banking perspective, I mean, some banks are more secure than others. Like, some of the little guys, not really little, I'm less inclined. Like, I had to deal with my dad's estate when he passed, and I had to deal with a credit union in the States. It was really small. Needless to say, I transferred the money out of there. So there's more banks in the US, so there's more of that risk. There's less here. But an app from a bank is usually very secure, and they'd have audit logs and data logs. So if something happened, they should be able to tell you that you're okay. But there are stories where you really are, maybe the bank's got to do an investigation to figure out what's going on.
Yeah, but they could turn on their oven and their house lights. I mean, I'm like, no, I don't want any of that. When I read that on there and you were talking about that.
Well, your iPhone, by the way, it is around all the time. It is getting all of our data. It's true. It's actually not fake. So it does have the ability to, that's why you'll get ads. Like, there's the debate was, no, this isn't really real. Yeah, actually, it is true.
I sometimes think about something and it shows up.
Yeah, that's why. You can actually test that theory. It's really easy to test. Because all you have to do is to start talking about, I think what we were doing the other day, my mom wanted some, what was it, pillows. She was looking for pillows, and sure enough, boom, pillows all over.
One of the things on social media, I'll see somebody say, I've been hacked, don't accept your friend, blah, blah, blah. And immediately, there's one after another comes in, and it says, I can help you deal with those sorts of things. And it's like, okay.
You are correct. That is a cyber, so what they'll do with a phishing attack is they successfully hack you, and then they try to hack all of your friends, and then they come back and re-hack you, the original victim. They'll use a ransomware attack on you, or they'll use a different type of attack. So that is actually really, unfortunately, common. So victims, especially business, will be like victimized multiple times. This is why we're trying to tell business people, freaking report it instantly. Because you're going to get attacked. The only time, and we had a big debate with Cyber Alberta, ransomware attack, you never pay. It's not worth it. We don't trust these criminals. Yes, there's businesses saying, well, it worked. The challenge is if it's an issue in the physical world. So like if you have an elevator and it's in a network and you don't know if you unplug it, whether those people are going to die, then you're looking at paying or doing something. So that's a concern. This was actually the debate we had at Cyber Alberta because that was the exercise. It was an elevator company.
Do you think Apple Pay is safe? Because my son just made me put it up.
Apple Pay is yeah, like a lot of this technology is safe. All I'm really trying to get you to understand is what are the key things you can do to protect yourself. Passwords, software updates, back up your data. You know, these are key, and you're not going to be much of a target. And be aware. And when I mean be aware, you're pretty savvy. I mean, you've been talking about, you can see it already, you're watching. And I mean, I find the seniors have time. My mom has more time, so she'll be like, did you see this latest one? So, I mean, pay attention to what the emails are. Look at that URL. It doesn't take you that much time to do that. And
Sorry.
yeah, go ahead.
The one that you had up there about being on the pornography sites and stuff, and I thought, wow. They wanted me to pay in
Bitcoin, oh yeah.
Right? The ransom one, yeah.
Ransomware, they'll target, so they'll get a data breach, let's say, well, on Netflix you can watch Ashley Madison, and you'll see that the reason why that particular site went down is more than one reason, is cybersecurity was not a factor for them, but they will get data breach information and they'll target individuals, and it can have serious consequences. I mean, people are committing suicide because their reputation is hit. Like this is why we're here today. I'm not here to try to scare you. I'm really here to tell you that there are ways you can empower yourself. And if that's the one message I get across, then I've done my job today. Because that's really what I'm trying to tell you. You can go do this research. You can go to that Canadian Centre for Cybersecurity and you can educate yourself. And I really encourage you to do so.
So is clearing your browser data a good practice?
Yeah,
too?
it's a good practice.
On the bank,
because they'll keep those cookies.
Yeah.
So yes, clear your browser data. Absolutely clear your browser data. Have you ever seen on Instagram, well, there's this son he takes his mom's phone and that's what he's doing. He's going through and clearing the browser data. Just get used to doing it. Make cybersecurity part of your everyday life. It's not hard. Look at your emails, check the URL. Just go on your phone and check for software updates, or on your iPad. My mom loves her iPad. That's what she uses. She doesn't use a laptop. So if it's iPad, which I think most of the seniors I know, most here in this club have iPads. Just go and check it and make sure your updates have happened. Like, not hard.
So what are the software updates doing? They're bringing in the more recent technology?
The reason why we say software updates, that's a really good question, Cheryl, is because when Microsoft has an attack that's successful, they need to send out a security patch so that you're not going to get attacked through your system. So that is why software updates are so critical. Apple will do the same, Android phones will do the same. So when those updates are coming, they actually matter. If you set it up for automatic updates, you should be okay.
Yeah, perfect.
But you need to make sure, and then some types of accounts may not have that. So then you do need to come up with a schedule and just check them once a month.
Somebody always says, oh, it slows your phone down. And maybe I need a new phone.
It doesn't slow your phone down. I mean, it is true that when you're using a VPN, like some of those systems, they can slow your phone down when you're going through on the internet. It gets frustrating. So you got to trade off that from whether it's worth it. But malware and protecting yourself, you should be doing those scans. Like you can Bitwarden will do malware scanning for you on your phone too. So research these password managers and see if you can get an all-for-one type of system.
One more question in the back.
Okay.
Is it safe, you're saying that it's better to use your phone data if you're somewhere else, but what if I'm in a hotel and if I use the Wi-Fi from the hotel, can I use the VPN to save it, or is still not safe enough?
I won't. Our company policy is if we're traveling, it is all off the cell phone. One of the things that's really concerning is like in the airports, they're actually, cyber criminals are targeting you. There's a thing we call juice jacking, where if you're, I'm not going to go into detail on that, it's too much time, but the safest thing is to use your data off your phone, and you can get the plans that will allow you to do it globally. Like We use Rogers. It allows us to do it. Any of our team members that are out, that's what they're doing. In the hotels, the problem is that they're really easy for cyber criminals to hack into, and they love to get people's information, especially China. They love those locations. Airports, hotels. So you're probably gonna see hotels trying to up their game with their routers because, again, they're an easy target. I mean, even Starbucks, easy target. I can show you that I can create, it's another type of hack, but there are criminals who will create a router, like the Wi-Fi network. They'll make it so that it's actually looks like Starbucks, looks everything like you'd expect, only it's the cyber criminals. And so you're hacking, you're attaching for public Wi-Fi right into it. And that's easy for these guys to do now. Like, that's not a lot of effort. That's why coffee shops are great. Don't use their public Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
All right. Are you okay sticking around for a few minutes after?
Sure, absolutely.
Okay. So I'm going to pass over to Marsha really quickly here. Hands together, please, for Kim.
Thank you, Kim. Quick question. Can I ask a question? Did anybody learn anything today? Now, who here in the room feels comfortable going home and taking the information that you've learned and implementing it all? Is there anybody that's ready to move? I can tell you that I'm overwhelmed. There's a lot here. So let me tell you one of the benefits of running a private investment counsel company here in Edmonton. So we've been private now for a year and a half. We get to make some changes. And one of the changes that we are making at North Road is we are introducing a digital risk advisor into our practice. I'm here today to introduce Mikhailo Niemtsev. Canada has stolen Mikhailo from the Ukraine, and he's been in Canada for how many years? 13 years. He goes by Misha, and we've been looking for somebody to join our team to take on this specific role. So we are not launching an IT services firm. We are launching a digital risk advisory service. So what this means is you, our client, is going to have access to information, services, and education around how we as Canadians are going to interact with the digital world in 2024. Misha, do you have a couple of things that you want to share about the introduction to the program and how it's going to look?
Of course. As scary as it all sounds, there's a lot of steps we can do to protect ourselves, and they're fairly simple. Right now we're researching ways to help out to combat all of these things. We're going to be using VPNs, firewalls, where we're going to be testing our program in our co-workers' houses next week. So we'll see. I think that's exciting.
That's good. We
also going to introduce webcam covers for everyone. We have our laptops are often open in our rooms, and we forget that the web cameras are very easily hacked, and it's very easy to record or take snapshots of a live camera. This is a very simple tool that you can apply on your camera, and you have an option to close it off completely. So let's say you want to talk with someone, you can slide it open, have your conversation, and the second you would want your privacy back, close it off. Cameras should not be open all the time. I personally installed one on my cell phone as well. If you guys have newer cell phones that have facial recognitions, just be careful not to block off the camera that's trying to catch your face to open your phone. Most of the phones I've checked, you shouldn't have an issue, especially Samsungs. You would just cover your camera, and mine is always off. If I want to use it, slide it open and close it off when I'm done. We're going to pass around the room and give everyone
Thanks, Misha. I appreciate it. So there's good news. There's going to be support in terms of like how we're going to be interacting with these digital risks. But the other piece of good news is I want to remind everybody is that we've recorded today's session, and we're going to post this on a private site. So only the guests here and our clients are going to have access to this site, and you can then not have to rely on all your notes taken, so they'll be available. Very good. So yeah, 2015 was our first ladies' lunch, and it's a decade later. We missed a couple years through COVID, but it sure is great to get back to the routine. So let's keep it up. Thank you for coming.